Secure some price for Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the historic Wall Center. And as always, this program a presentation of Bet365. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things with the intern Jaden Taja. We have a big show planned for you today as the Canucks coaching search narrows, so we're told.
Mm-hmm.
And as the BC Lions make the big announcement that everybody was waiting for. But we will start with our Toyota Pacific Dealers poll question. Who do you want as the next Canucks coach? You can vote for Adam Foote. I was going to call him current assistant, but I guess his contract expires.
He's now being written as former, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Manny Malhotra, of course, the head coach of the AHL Abbotsford Canucks. Marco Sturm, the one-time Vancouver Canuck player, if ever briefly, and head coach of the Ontario Reign of the AHL. Or you can vote other, and if you're voting other, please specify in the reply. Do so at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. Blake Price, what says you?
I think I'm of the Malhotra. Of the three guys there, I'm going Malhotra confidently.
Okay.
The other is still impressive to me. I'm
actually surprised other isn't getting more run here.
Yeah.
In the early voting of the poll.
I would want to
500 votes in, 13% for other.
I would want to be in on the Jay Woodcroft interview if there was one or is one. Mm-hmm. And Mitch Love have got some time to hear an argument there, too.
Yeah. It's funny because we fired our poll, and I said I'm voting other just because both Jay Woodcroft and Todd Nelson, the former Edmonton Oilers head coaches, are intriguing to me, not to mention Mitch Love, the Capitals assistant. And had a friend of ours in the media in Edmonton who covered both Woodcroft and Nelson reach out and say, if Woodcroft gets an interview, he will interview very, very well because he's very polished. He's very charming.
Mm-hmm.
But he told me, he said, I'd prefer Nelson. He says he's a no flash, no BS, authentically good guy, outstanding communicator. And he thought Nelson would do a great job of calming the waters here when they become choppy. And you know we're the choppiest waters in the NHL. I mean, we're the Whitecaps of the NHL. We really are.
Yes.
I know not every city is based on water, but if they were, their Whitecaps wouldn't be as big as our Whitecaps.
This past season was not Whitecaps. This was high open water swell.
This was Portuguese waves.
Yes.
Was it Nazarene?
Nazarene, yeah. Yeah.
This was big wave surfing this last year. Now, should mention this. The Athletic reporting Adam Foote still very much in the mix to be the Canucks coach. Is that the Quinn Hughes endorsement?
I hope not because I hate to cheer against Quinn Hughes' wishes. But this cannot be the droid they're looking for. It just can't.
Well, Adam Foote was the head coach for 1+ year with the Kelowna Rockets. He amassed a record of 48, 49, 10, and 4. He was fired in February of his second season, 3 months before hosting the Memorial Cup with his son Nolan as the captain. And just for those of you, because I've seen this out there, yes, it is true that 2 of the 5 former Canadian World Junior hockey players who are currently on trial in a London Superior Court for sexual assault, to which they have pled not guilty, were members of the Kelowna Rockets. That's Adam's son, Cal, and Dylan Dubé. They were both Rockets players before Foote was the head coach of the team. His son Nolan played for him. Cal and Dubé had moved on, graduated from junior hockey by the time he took the reins. But And I got to say, the more I've looked into Marco Sturm, the more I've liked what I've seen. First of all, the guy had a 119-80 record in 3 seasons coaching the Ontario Reign. That's pretty darn good. The other thing about Marco Sturm is that you can't just look at his AHL resume, which, as mentioned, is quite good, but he's also coached the German national team. He's German. And look, if you look at the World Championships, it wasn't all that impressive. It was 7 at the 2016 World, 7th at the 2016 Worlds, 8th at the 2017 Worlds, and 11th at the 2018 Worlds. But Blake, you may remember the 2018 Olympics.
Yeah.
In
Pyeongchang,
Korea. The Germans, first of all, they had to qualify to get into that tournament, and did so with a 3-0 record in qualifying, a nip and tuck win over Latvia to get into the tournament. And then they beat, in succession, Switzerland, Sweden, and Canada. All 1-goal wins before losing to Russia in overtime of the gold medal game. I will forever remember that third period in overtime.
Yeah, did they have a late
I
lead?
believe so.
Yeah.
You, me, Lawrence Gilman, and a bunch of our colleagues from our former radio station were in Vegas that week, and had a beautiful steak dinner, and then made our way into the casino to watch the overtime. There weren't a lot of people watching the overtime in the casino at that late hour. I do remember that, but there were some German and some Russian hockey fans watching it. So that is exemplary work at the Olympic level. He was 4 years an LA Kings assistant as well. Now, the question is, would the Kings want to promote him if Ken Holland, who everybody now suspects, Vernon's Ken Holland, becomes the new general manager, president of the LA Kings? That reporting is out there now. And will Ken Holland keep his fellow British Columbian, Jim Hiller of Port Alberni, or move on? So I offer all that as a pretext to what our buddy Patrick Johnston is reporting, and we will get to PJ on Thursday, who says he's building on extending the Athletic reporting. It's down to Manny Malhotra or Adam Foote, says Peach.
Which is interesting and bold to already be down to the 2 after what seemed to be a pretty widespread search.
And he's got Manny as the favorite there.
Yeah. And you know what? If it's Manny, I mean, I can live with it. We are not in on the interview, so it's really difficult to fine-tune your opinions without knowing exactly what is being said in these interviews, I think. Hiring a coach is really difficult here. Every single group of players that you get is different. And that means a hockey difference. That means a personality difference. Like, it is such a different set of circumstances each time out. So, it gives you education, what they've done in the past. For sure it does. But it's not a certainty. And so it's a lot of it is in the eye of the beholder. I think in a lot of cases, Matt, when an organization is making a decision on a head coach, it's a 3-way tie, and they make a leap off of the ledge in one direction. And so, I don't know. Manny Malhotra is not the wrong decision, that's for sure. We don't know if it's the right, but it's not the wrong, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And you do also wonder whether, and we've had a little bit of a break here since the Abbotsford Canucks have wrapped up their second-round playoff series victory. They don't play again till Friday, so it's a week between games. You do wonder whether Manny has gone in there and done the second interview.
I would hope.
And has so impressed the brass that they have decided, okay, we're going to keep it in-house, for lack of a better term. It's either going to be the Rick Tocchet holdover assistant, Adam Foote, with his first NHL head coaching job, his second head coaching job after Kelowna, or Manny Malhotra with his first NHL head coaching job and second ever head coaching job after Abbotsford.
And the interesting thing would be there is if he gets the job, does he keep on keeping on with the structure that they have played with, or does he do the Manny twist on this? Like, to a degree,
I would think so.
He had his own imprint on it because, he's making decisions in game that are not from the brain of Rick Tocchet, but there's an overall structure that they asked him to abide by. Now he gets to take some learnings from that structure and maybe a little lemon zest on it from Manny Malhotra's brain. Okay. What I'm saying is I think they would still be defensive as they have been, but I wonder if he might be able to have a new look at how to extract some offense out of this team.
Yeah. Tell us about the BZ4X.
Well, the BZ4X is really something that has to be seen and felt to be believed. That's why they encourage the BZ4X to do the selling, not me. Get your Pacific Toyota dealers. Sit in one. Drive in one. And the rest will be history. Right now, up to $5,000 in incentives. You can get APR financing at 0.99% over 36 months. Folks, it is just waiting there for you. Never stop at a gas station ever again. And it's a Toyota. You know the Toyota quality is there. ShopToyota.ca.
Do you know with their Safety Connect, you can talk to Toyota for 10 years? 10 years.
I don't know that I've got a 10-year call on me. You mean like throughout 10 years?
Over the course of 10 years.
Over the course of 10 years, yeah. Like a 10-year phone call. I'm not a big phone guy. So.
Do you know they have the panoramic view monitoring system?
Very safe. A lot of convenience in parking, too.
Do you know you can run this car with your phone? It's pretty awesome. Anyways, some of my notes.
You still use the steering wheel.
BZ4X test drive a number of months ago. Okay, our top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. The announcement we've all been waiting for is in. The BC Lions announcing that Snoop Dogg will play the pregame concert June 7th for the season and home opener prior to the game against the Edmonton Elks. The Lions opener has become a Vancouver event on the late spring calendar, appealing far broader, obviously, than just Lions or football fans. The game sold out last year with more than 54,000 in attendance at BC Place, and the Lions noted today that the lower bowl is nearly sold out for this game. The concert will go at 5:45 p.m. before a 7 p.m. kickoff. Previous years, there's been a little wiggle room with those two times, but yeah, roughly a 5:45 concert and a 7 p.m. kickoff. This is the fourth consecutive year that owner Amar Doman has provided a pregame concert free of charge, because all you have to do is buy your game ticket. They started with One Republic, LL Cool J, 50 Cent, and now Snoop Dogg. So first of all, Mayor of Wrongville on me for thinking, maybe they're going the country route. Dwayne Vanneau made a big deal about their, country-themed night that they're having later in the season. This is a third straight legacy rap act.
Yes, but I would say that this one is the biggest of the three.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I think Snoop Dogg is bigger than 50 Cent and LL Cool J.
He's a brand too. Like as much
he's
as the other guys are,
like his write up says it. He's an icon.
You don't even need to be a rap fan to know who Snoop Dogg is and to be mildly intrigued by what Snoop Dogg might do, because he is a character. Hey, the other two guys have been characters too, but I mean more so. Like this guy hosted the darn Olympics. He's done shows with Martha Stewart.
Yes.
He does it all.
Started his own football league. About Snoop Dogg, an entertainment industry mogul, Snoop Dogg has reigned for nearly 3 decades as an unparalleled force who has raised the bar as a globally recognized innovator. Snoop Dogg is an American rapper, singer, songwriter, actor, record producer, DJ, media personality, businessman, and icon, capital I. In addition to his extensive work in music, Snoop is a serial entrepreneur with endeavors in Web 3.0, tech, entertainment, lifestyle, global consumer brands, food, beverage, and cannabis industries. Beyond Snoop Dogg's business ventures, he has been active in philanthropy work in a number of organizations, including the Snoop's Youth Football League. I watched the documentary on the Youth Football League. And clothing as well. I say this as a big rap fan who has been to dozens of hip hop shows in my life, and I've seen Snoop 3 or 4 times. I think twice out here, twice when I was back east, once with the Dog Pound. So this is the first act that's come through that I've seen before. And look, huge act. He's going to sell a lot of tickets. People are jazzed about this. Was there a case from going away from a legacy rap act? And look, it's very, very difficult. You've got to book one of these people. They are really busy. They tend to be very booked out for a long way out. And, of course, they're really expensive, too. So I don't.
It's touring season, too. So
I don't want to pick nits here.
Yeah.
But by the same token, it is a third straight legacy rap act. I'm going to guess the musical tastes of the BC Lions and broader fan base are pretty wide and diverse.
Okay, a few things as to why this works. A, they've got proof of concept. So if they saw 2 good receptions to their first 2 acts and thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Here's another thing, and they'd have a little bit of this from One Republic, some knowledge of this. Setting up and taking down a rock act is a lot more difficult than setting up and taking down a hip hop act in terms of expediting the stage removal and all that sort of thing before the game begins.
It was clinical with 50 Cent.
Yeah.
Our seats were so that we saw backstage. 50 got right into a waiting car and back out to the airport along with everybody on stage. And, Mike would know a thing or two about this. And the stage was dismantled in pretty short order, as I recall.
No tuning instruments, all that sort of stuff, right? Like it's pretty lickety split.
Well, I hope we got levels for all the guys who have microphones.
Yes.
Because as Steve Harvey will tell you, the comedian, rap shows, everybody gets a microphone. Yeah. Like you hear a lot of voices on a lot of microphones.
So, I mean, hey, he doesn't, and I used to listen to a lot of Dre and Eminem more so than Snoop, but Snoop was always there.
Yes, he does a lot of cameos on songs.
Yeah. But I'm not terribly motivated to go and see this, but the reaction that I'm seeing on social media is huge. Like, people are really impressed, so that's all that matters.
Like I said, if I've never seen him before, I would have already bought tickets here. I've seen him 3 or 4 times. He takes a chronic break in the middle of the show.
I think he'll make it through this one.
Well, this one is shorter, so I hope he doesn't take a chronic break. And he's upfront about it too. He will tell the crowd, okay, now I've got to go take my chronic break, and he doesn't seem to go very far because there tends to be an odor that follows that, and then like 15 minutes later, it comes back. Yeah. Now, he's got other people out there performing while he takes his chronic break. It's not like there's an intermission or anything.
I think Eddie Vedder drinks like 4 bottles of red wine while he's in a concert.
Really?
So they all have their ways of.
But during the instrumentals, right? Like he's got McCready playing something.
Yes.
And he goes, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like Snoop has actually left the stage when I've seen him.
Well, again,
which you can get away with when
not
you're
a lot
Snoop
of guitar
Dogg.
solos for.
No. Anyways, yeah. Typically, the concerts have gone 45 minutes or so, an hour, and they've been a lot of fun. And I have no doubt that this one will follow in that legacy. I also wonder if they are going to start to hear from fans now, though, going, okay, it's been Rap 3 years in a row. Can we branch out and do a different musical genre? Because remember, everybody, the idea here is to connect the BC Lions football team brand and the Canadian Football League to a younger audience. This is something that the Canadian Football League has been highlighting for some time because there is at least one, if not a couple of lost generations of CFL fans because of all the economic uncertainty that the league went through during the 80s, 90s, and aughts. Growing up in Ottawa, we lost our team. We got it back. We lost it again. The Toronto Argonauts have certainly not captured the attention of Toronto. I mean, you almost have to go back to the 80s. There were a couple of brief periods where the Argos got hot, sold a bunch of tickets, but it has been a multi-decade pursuit for the Argos to get a bigger footprint in the city of Toronto. Montreal has had some outstanding successes, but also some lean periods. They lost their team at one point too. So the idea has been to reconnect with a younger generation of fans. I have no doubt that Snoop appeals to a younger generation of fans, but I'm not sure on the same level as One Republic, for example. Like when we were at the One Republic show several years ago at BC Place, and I believe I said it on our show, the Monday Coming Back, I had never seen that many young people at a CFL stadium outside of Regina in my life. And I'm someone who has been to dozens of CFL games in every stadium or every market around the league. I was astounded at how many young people were there for One Republic. Don't get me wrong, you got 54,000 in the house. You have a lot of young people, and saw that last year with 50 Cent as well. But like, you tell me, does Snoop Dogg appeal? You've got a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 17-year-old. Is that right?
22, 20, and 17. Yeah.
Yeah. Does Snoop Dogg appeal to them?
Probably not.
No, I wouldn't think so.
No, probably not.
Now, late 20s, early 30s, I would think so.
Yeah. Anybody that was around for the Chronic and
of course all the
Eminem
cameos. Katy Perry, like he's working
now.
Virtually.
Remember
every
last
artist.
year there was also the pre-concert concert as well. Biff Naked was out on the plaza,
right? And I stopped by that, and that was great fun.
So I think they'll probably do that as well. Mm-hmm. Add a different flavor outside.
The plaza last year was awesome. It was a beautiful day, and it was rocking. Like they were capacity in a number of the pens last year.
Also, I'm gonna bet, and I have no inside info on this. I bet you that country night that Dwayne. I bet you there's a concert element to that.
Yeah,
as well.
I would think
it's
so.
not going to be of the same
I would think
order,
so.
But I bet you there will be a live act there.
Yeah, and again, I understand how difficult this is for Amar Doman and how expensive it is for Amar Doman. But I wonder if next year you have to go out and seek an artist that very much appeals to the teenage and early 20s demo.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyways,
we'll see. Yeah.
Looking forward to the season. Of course, the Lions are there in Kamloops at Thompson Rivers University in the midst of training camp, and Sunday brings the Fan Fest, where you have not only the open practice and a play with the pros clinic, but also a team autograph session, and was at a Lions event last month. Got a chance to connect with our guy, Sean White, Lions kicker. And I said, Sean, like, you're going to have to go deep incognito this year if you're going to try and fool your teammates that you're a fan seeking autographs and not actually the Lions kicker.
He's going to have to hit up the newbies.
And he was like, well, the thing is, I pull the hat down, I put the sunglasses on, and it's like, yeah, but you're not, like, I know Ryan Phillips and some of the, you're not going to get RP again this year with that.
Buck maybe, though.
You think he'll get Buck?
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to get Buck. No. Buck was here when he was here.
I know, but Buck's got so much on his mind right now. First year, his mind is that's what White
head coach
takes advantage of. Is sort of clouded.
It's true.
Flustered.
You could tell last year RP had a lot going on there.
Yeah.
There were a number of new positions, new guys trying out for positions on defense. They had great continuity. Anyways, we'll see. We'll see what Whitey has.
Yes.
What, does Snoop Lion have anything to do with this?
So what now?
Well,
his
alter
brief
ego
foray into reggae. He was known as Snoop Lion.
That's right. Did he not say I'm Snoop Lion now and then went back to Snoop Dogg?
He fully changed and then just all of a sudden.
And of course,
Snoop Lion. Really?
Mike has great insight into this because Mike has smoked weed with Snoop. You want to tell us the story again?
I don't remember most of it, but yeah, we had a good time.
Snoop Lion. This is the first time I've ever heard of this.
Oh, yeah, no, it was the thing. What was it? You were at a rap party?
a wrap party for Bones, the movie he starred in, which 4 people saw.
Mm-hmm. And Mike's over at the audio board because that's what Mike does. And he sees Snoop Dogg and the posse making a beeline for him.
The introduction was, "Hi, I'm Snoop Dogg." And I said, "No shit." And proceeded to go from there, which led to his tremendous-sized bodyguard rolling tremendous-sized
bats,
legal things.
Yeah. They were near an exterior door, so Mike thinks that's the reason why they're music guys to begin with, so they're interested in the board and the levels and what's going on and all that. But they were also near an exterior door, and so the bodyguard just set up shop and started rolling right there in the booth. And you know, Mike thought he would be cool and asked Snoop Dogg if he wanted to smoke a bowl, and he showed him what he planned to smoke, and Snoop Dogg was like, "Oh,
that's cute.
We can do better."
The adorbs.
Yeah.
He was christened Snoop Lion by a Rastafarian priest in Jamaica. You can't say no to that.
No, you can't.
No.
Not while in Jamaica.
When
You
the
can
rest
leave
of
Jamaica, you can become Snoop Dogg again. But if Jamaica says you're Snoop Lion, that's that.
Yeah.
Anyways, all this fun is happening June 7th at BC Place. It's the Lions, it's the Elks, and it's the pregame concert with Snoop Dogg, or Lion, if you want to call him that, at 5:45.
To bring this full circle,
You're going to want to have a yellow dog in hand at the stadium as you're watching all this.
okay, I'll talk about Yellow Dog first. There's a bring around. Yellow Dog's got a new box to announce. The Sour Series mix pack. It's the double the fun with 2 bold and fruit-loaded sours for the summer. Sundog Raspberry Peach Sour. There's a lot going on there. And the Wave Rider Mango Pineapple Sour, your new go-to zesty, tangy sidekick. Hitting your local liquor store soon on a hot summer day, right after noon, when you're feeling a little bit guilty about cracking a full-on the sours. The sours. We've got a super chat from Web.3. Foote over Manny is foolish. We need vibes. And thanks for your super chat. Proceeds go to the BC Mental Health Foundation.
Well, I can understand the take.
All about the vibes.
Well, less so vibes and just Adam Foote has had one head coaching opportunity and it didn't go very well at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they fired him 3 months. Bruce Hamilton, they fired him 3 months.
One full year.
Before the Memorial Cup. Of course, in junior hockey, when you're hosting the Memorial Cup, you tend to have a pretty good team there and are hoping to make as good a bid as you can in the regular season and playoffs to qualify the old-fashioned way, if not by virtue of being the host. Manny's first head coaching stint here has gone quite well, right? I mean, they were the second team in the Pacific Division. They won 13 games in a row.
Yeah.
At one point and are now into the third round of the playoffs. So, I realize they're different levels. I realize they're different sets of circumstances, and it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it's still apples to fruit. And I would suggest that, Manny has showed better in his brief head coaching foray than Adam Foote did.
Yeah. Well, he's neither one of them has got the long tenured resume, so you're taking a bit of a jump regardless. But the more recent head coaching experience is with Manny Malhotra, so I think it's understandable to point in that direction rather than a guy that has tried it and had no success, and as you said, unceremoniously dismissed during an important year for the Kelowna Rockets that season.
Yes.
So. Yeah, I think there's a bunch of noise that comes along with that Adam Foote hiring too, given what his son is going through, that I don't know that they necessarily want to wade into that. Whether that's a fair bit of noise or not, that's up for debate, but I just don't think they want that debate.
And particularly if the players and his son are found guilty here.
Yeah.
frankly, and look, he was almost never available to media outside of when Rick Tocchet went to the Four Nations with Canada. Some assistants are empowered to talk and don't want to. Some aren't empowered to talk in NHL organizations, franchises. Sometimes, as we saw with Rick Bowness, basically just giving Alain Vigneault a day off. Bones could talk.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily know what it's been like for Adam Foote to have this going on as he's gone about trying to coach the Vancouver Canucks defenseman, right? I imagine for any parent that is quite a large preoccupation when your son is charged with a very, very serious crime like that. And that trial is undergoing, and the players have pled not guilty, and we'll see where it goes. We have offer sheet information from the National Hockey League today, and we're going to try and do this as we're going to try and explain this as cleanly as possible. It should be mentioned we've already failed on one side of this thing. But Mike, can you bring up the graphic? Have you brought up the graphic there?
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. Those are the different, and for those of you listening on podcasts, I'll spell it out. But bottom line here is offer sheets begin at $1.5 million and can go all the way up to more than $11.7 million per season. The value of the offer sheet correlates with the compensation for the team with the player who, if they choose not to match the offer sheet, they get draft pick considerations. Now, we have been fixated on what we now know is the $7.02 to $9.36 million range. That is the level of offer sheet where if you sign a player and his existing team chooses not to match, you would give up first, second, and third round draft picks. And all of those picks have to be your indigenous picks in the next draft.
Not picks that you've acquired via trade.
They cannot belong to someone you acquire them with the trade. No,
they can be your pick that has had a journey through other franchises that you reacquire.
Yes.
But it can't be their pick.
It's got to be your indigenous pick. So we had been talking about the Canucks' third-round pick this current year, which is owned by the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the Canucks do have a third-round pick this year. It's actually the first pick in the third round. It's via San Jose. That would not qualify as an offer sheet pick. It is their indigenous pick, which wound up in Montreal via the Sean Monahan trade. But
that's not the set of picks that matters.
No.
Because you don't get to do this until July 1st.
So early errors
post-draft
and omissions here. So it's the 2026 Vancouver Canucks cohort of draft picks,
which presents the exact same problem. So the exercise is still the same. It's just instead of trying to acquire the third round pick from Montreal, it's actually Calgary.
Yes. They sent their 2026 third round pick to Calgary as part of the Nikita Zadorov trade.
Yeah.
It was a 2024 pick and a 2026 third rounder that went to Calgary for Nikita Zadorov. So Blake and I have been fixated on reacquiring that Montreal pick. But because these offer sheets can only be signed after the draft, it is the 2026 picks that are germane to the exercise.
Again, funnily enough, the exercise is the same. And in fact, you can still do the trade that we've talked about. And in fact, it actually might be more desirable in the case of Calgary because you could still trade them. This third round pick for this year from San Jose, trade that to Calgary and say, can we have our pick back for next year? Calgary, because it's something sooner rather than later, and it'll be a better pick, will undoubtedly say yes, you would think. So it's the same exercise, just with a different team, and then that would allow the Canucks to. And again, the reason why we're fixated on that price point is more so than in years gone by when the Blues signed Broberg and Holloway to deals. They were dealing with a cap-strapped Edmonton team. Nobody's really cap-strapped this year. So you have to go...
There's a few, but yes.
Yeah. So
Your
you have to
pickings
go
are slimmer.
higher priced and try to overwhelm somebody with just too much cost. And to me, it's probably something that begins with a 9 in getting one of the guys going into their second contracts. Because nobody really wants to pay 9+ for somebody in their second contract unless they are really special players. I mean, you know, the Quinn Hugheses of the world didn't even get that.
Right. But wait, there's more. And I mean an extra layer of complexity here.
There is.
The average, leave the chart up there for a second, Mike, if you don't mind. The average annual value is calculated at either the contract length or 5 years, whichever is lower. So you're sitting there looking at the chart going a $7 to $9.3 million player costs a first, second, and third round pick. But if that's on a 7-year deal, then you're calculating the AAV, so the total compensation, over 5 years. So instead of first, second, and third round picks, if it's a 5-year deal, you're basically looking at a roughly $11 million average annual value because it's divided by 5, not 7. And so then you're into 2 firsts, 1 second, and 1 third, the next level up of compensation.
That's why you don't
I
see...
have no earthly idea why they do this. I'm sure there's a good reason, but it's just, it adds more difficulty and complexity to the exercise, which for some is already complex and difficult enough.
Well, it means that a team, again, can't make the offer so great, because if you're offering second contract guys 7-year deals at $9 million, well, that's a big commitment that they're getting.
Yeah, that's $63 million in total compensation. So just to go through the exercise, that would on divided by 5. That churns out to more than $12 million per year. So then you're in the absolute top of the top compensation level, which is 4 first-round picks.
Yeah, so it's to dissuade the tantalizing deal. It's why we only see short-term deals, and generally they're 1 to 2 year deals that you see. Holloway and Broberg both got 2-year deals. And here's the one that tripped us up as I tried to fact-check all this, was Kotkaniemi, which was a sneaky 1-year offer sheet from Carolina to Montreal for $6.1 million. Again, overwhelm them with the cap number.
Yeah.
We're not going to match it. We don't have $6 million in cap space. We're not going to create that for a guy that we're not even convinced is going to be an NHL player. Fine, you can have him. And then they went back and negotiated with him months later on that 8-year deal that's only 4.4, whatever it is. So he's actually on a decent cap hit now. He had that one huge cap hit, though, to get extracted out of Montreal.
So the bottom line is they want to give the team that receives the offer sheet a fighting chance to match.
That's right.
And look, it was weaponized last year by Doug Armstrong in St. Louis. I think all those of us on the outside looking in who don't have to deal with this are all hoping, look, it's a tool of the CBA. Let's see this used more often. It makes for more interesting offseason discussion, discourse. Not to mention it's a tool to improve your team, right? And a big decision that's put in the hands of the team that does receive an offer sheet on one of its players. So it's fun for all of us. It's not as much fun for the NHL GMs. We'll see. Because of everybody's cap space, I and because the history of the offer sheets, I am a little skeptical that we'll see it used or at least successful this summer. That said, many are focused on Minnesota center iceman Marco Rossi. The Hockey News did an item on that today. They connected the Pittsburgh Penguins to a potential Marco Rossi acquisition. Rossi is skipping the World Championships. He is Austrian, and needless to say, would be a frontline player for his national team, but he's an RFA, so he's protecting that status. Here's Byron Bader of Hockey Prospecting, someone who I follow and quite like his work on social and online. He has models that predicts a player's career. And he does this all the way down to draft-eligible players this year, where he spits a lot of data about the guy into his model and sees who the comparables are and then takes a look at how often do these comparables hit, how often do they miss. Here's what Bader said about Rossi. I would be all in on acquiring Rossi if he's available. He's small, and that's probably half the reason why he might be available. We've had that conversation about Bill Guerin and preferring bigger forwards, particularly center icemen. Bader continues, but he could be pretty impactful in his prime. Just had his first star season, and yes, he grades players based on star, superstar, just shy of. And his career is falling very similar to Briere, meaning Daniel Briere, now Flyers general manager, but once upon a time a very nifty forward in the NHL. And he mentioned that Daniel Briere, to this point in his career, like Rossi, took off 3 years henceforth. So
both competitors, both driven players, both small. But you think about the most successful small players, driven, focused players, whether it's superstar point producers like St. Louis, whether it's more middle role players like Brendan Gallagher. You have to have the fire, and everybody says Marco Rossi has got the fire. He's not going to be as pugnacious as Gallagher, but he is a driven and fiery player in his competitiveness, and that's a key ingredient to be a successful small player in the league.
And Mike, leave the graphic up there for a second. Sorry, but leave the graphic up there for a second. It might be a little difficult to see, but down below you will see that Marco Rossi's development comps. Holy cow! Adam Fantilli, Eric Lindros, Alexander Daigle, Pierre Turgeon, Dale Hawerchuk. And then the full comps are Briere, Brian Rolston, who was a very good player in the NHL, Robert Petrovicki, and others. So, yeah, he's not fully formed. He could still go a couple of ways, but right now he's looking like a very good bet to be an excellent NHL
And the
player.
Wild can afford, if you go to 9.36, the Wild can afford it. They've got that cap space. Well, what it does, though, is it precludes them from doing the other things that they want to do. Because the rumor is that they're offering him something that begins with a 5 right now.
Right. And so the question is, do you even go down the offer sheet boulevard, or if Minnesota knows people are prepping offer sheets on Rossi that they're not most inclined to match, that at some point will Bill Guerin go to some of these teams or put Marco Rossi on the market and just do a traditional trade to avoid the uncertainty, the messiness.
And get a warm body back because they are trying to be good next year. Right?
That's the other thing, right? It's draft pick compensation. Minnesota has a terrific pipeline of prospects there. Yes, they are looking. They're looking to get out of the first round.
Yeah.
Which has been an issue for that franchise. Stanley Cup playoffs. Edmonton and Carolina taking commanding 3-1 series leads last night. The Oilers destroy Vegas 3-0 behind a 23-save. Am I reading this correct? A Stuart Skinner shutout? Did you watch the game last night? Can you confirm that was
just have
Stuart
a wealth
Skinner?
of goaltending now, don't they? The spring.
Holy cow.
It's a geyser now.
And look, I was very skeptical Edmonton could get to this level from what I saw of them late in the regular season, where they were, pun intended, leaking oil down the stretch. Well, they got to a level last night that I think very few teams can match. I mean, Vegas, I would think, would be one of the teams that could get to that level. But boy, Edmonton has looked terrific here. 1 win away from going to their second straight Western Conference final. Of course, beat the Canucks in 7 games in round 2 last year to make it to the West Final and got to the Stanley Cup final. Carolina, I mean, I watched part of that game last night, and they just have every answer for Washington. And Washington doesn't have the same answers back.
So the question is, if we get the wrong result tonight,
well, if we
get have 3-1 leads.
Winnipeg looking to avoid a 3-1 series hole, game 4 at Dallas, and Winnipeg hasn't inspired much confidence in me at the very least. Hellebuck on the road has been, well, not the Connor Hellebuck we're accustomed to seeing in the regular season. Even at home, they've had their struggles, Winnipeg. So really pulling for the Jets tonight. I mean, that Florida-Toronto series is terrific, going at least 6. I would not be surprised at 7. Want a second series to go longer than...
We have to thank Florida and Toronto for entertaining us?
Yeah.
I'd rather not.
And speaking of Florida, oh boy, Doug Sifu is about to learn a big lesson about Gary Bettman's league, and that is we hate politics, and we particularly hate politics on social media, Doug. The NHL has suspended Florida Panthers vice chairman and alternate governor Doug Sifu. He's a minority owner alongside Vinny Viola, who, as you may know, served in Donald Trump's cabinet the first time around, his first presidency. They have suspended Sifu from any involvement with the team or the league in response to inappropriate posts on Sifu's now shuttered social media account.
He got tangled up with a troll.
At Dougie Large was the account.
No kidding.
Yeah, you don't say, huh?
Oh, my gosh.
So anyways, somebody gets in his comments, very much looks like a Leaf fan, or at least somebody
purporting
to be a Leaf fan. The troll says, hey, what's worse, using headshots to win a series or using starvation as a weapon to win a war? Sifu replies, actually being a whiny dope anti-Semite is clearly worse, loser. Which I think that enough would have gotten Gary Stander up. But then it went further. The troll comes back at him, and Sifu responds, eat shit, 51st state anti-Semite loser, Israel now and forever until ever, he meant every last Hamas rat is eliminated. So,
two different political
I was going to say that,
fronts.
yeah, exactly. So you've got religious politics involved here. You have geopolitics along the 49th parallel involved here. Gary goes out of his way to make the NHL as apolitical as possible. I think Gary, like many in the United States, is very fearful of any kind of backlash from Donald Trump or anything like that. The irony, of course, being that they had geopolitics really infuse their Four Nations tournament with meaning that I'm not sure would have been there without Donald Trump talking about 51st state. And, of course, a great victory for Canada at the Toronto Dominion Garden in Boston.
Sifu has got a meeting with Gary Bettman,
and
they're going to discuss things.
I think they're going to discuss things.
I think he's probably going to be out of the public view for a bit here.
Yeah, I have a feeling he may not be alternate governor and vice chairman of the Panthers after this. In fact, I wonder if Vinny Viola or someone is going to have to buy out Doug Sifu's position in the Florida
Or he's
Panthers.
suspended for next season and then welcomed back. One of those two.
But needless to say, and look, the one thing that I will wholeheartedly agree with in terms of Gary and the way he runs his league is that when you're an owner or you're an executive or a governor, you've got to rise above Twitter trolls.
Yeah.
You cannot get into war of words with Twitter trolls.
Everybody should walk away from Twitter trolls.
It is really
much
good
less
counsel,
people that are public-facing owners.
Right. I mean,
like,
come on. Don't take the bait here, Dougie Large.
Yes. Dougie Large. He's warming up for Snoop Dogg at the home opener of the...
Do you think he might be just a smidge full of himself at Dougie Large?
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our menu. It is brought to you by Greta. Fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away, pregame, postgame, your steps from the arena or stadium district. They have the outstanding street food menu. The tacos are truly amazing. Try the tacos. And, of course, the arcade that encircles the bar. Weekly drink specials, 50 West Cordova. Greta, let the games begin. We'll talk to Cam Robinson here. Cam, when we talked to him last week, was sensing some optimism on Tom Willander. We'll just leave that there. Also talk a little bit about coaching candidates offer sheets with Cam. And then Arjun Nimmala, the Toronto Blue Jays' #1 prospect, one of the top 50 to 100 prospects in all of baseball, the Vancouver Canadians shortstop, is going to join us. We interviewed him earlier today, Blake, and I got to say, this kid, for 19 years old, was as polished and mature. Wow. What a poised young man. He's been here in Vancouver for the last month playing for the Seas, got a chance to explore the city a little bit. He's tied for the league lead in home runs with one of his teammates.
And when you listen to him, keep in mind,
he is
19 years of age.
And he will play the entirety of this baseball season at 19. He doesn't turn 20 until the off season. So there is a very, very good chance that he is going to be with the Vancouver Canadians for most of, if not all of this season. It is very rare to see a 19-year-old in Double-A.
It's unicorn kind of stuff.
That is the next level for him. I mean, if he keeps going like this, perhaps there's a world, because he hasn't even played in the dead of summer when the ball flies a little further and you can really increase your power totals. So this is a prodigious talent who's playing shortstop for your Vancouver Canadians. The Seas start a homestand tonight against the Everett Aquasauts, the Mariners farm team, and that team is loaded with M's prospects. If you're a Mariners fan, get on out to the Nat this week.
If you want the I saw that guy play at Nat Bailey Stadium experience, this is a good week.
This is the good week between Nimmala for the Canadians and 5 of the top 10 Mariners prospects on that Everett team, including a switch pitcher who is scheduled to start Saturday. This is a really, really good week to go watch some of the future of the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners at the Nat. Get your tickets, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. It is time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. Every time I go back to hockey from basketball, I lose. So I'm going back to basketball today.
Okay.
Did you win yours last night? You had Draisaitl points, if I'm not mistaken.
I had a Draisaitl goal.
Mm-hmm.
And
did it specify his net or the other net?
It did not.
Okay.
It did not. So Kane and Henrique were the goal scorers. So I don't get the win.
Okay. So going back to basketball, Indiana's got a chance to close out Cleveland tonight. It's in Cleveland, but I'm getting 8 points. And boy, the Indiana victories in this series have been quite convincing. So, look, maybe they win and close it out. They smell blood in the water, or maybe they're just close in Cleveland. Either way, I win at +8 on the Pacers.
I'm going to go to the Jets' desperation on the road. We talked about this era of Jets hockey. Will they ever break through? That's what's on the line here tonight. It's not an elimination game, but it kind of is, if you know. +130. The Jets to keep themselves really in this series.
I hope you're right. I want to see that one go further, and I would love to see Winnipeg win.
By the way, I mentioned Evander Kane scoring. Is that a story here? 4 goals in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, Evander's been very good from the moment he entered that series. He was a presence, as you knew he might be. And I saw people making the jokes of a guy who was on LTIR all year drops into the playoffs and scores against Vegas.
Turnabout is fair play.
Delicious. Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you. Game props, player props, totals, money line. You bet futures like series winners, conference champions, Stanley Cup champions, plus so much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Cam Robinson coming up next. It's Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
I understand you are headed out onto the golf course today.
Indeed, I am.
For the 71st time this season. That is a lot of bogey juice for Matt Sakaris. And you'd think you would be getting less and less playing as much as you have played. But, ultimately, there's only so much improvement you can make at our age.
Why do you want to crush my spirit here?
I'm not. I'm giving you the opportunity for Bogey Juice. BogeyJuice.com. Use the code SP15. Get 15% off your order. Whether it's the individual size servings for that Bogey Juice shot when it lips out so violently. Like it never wanted to go in the hole.
I had a couple of those last week.
Or pour over some ice, add some soda. You get yourself a beautiful apple ginger vodka cocktail. The taste of spring and summer for you. BogeyJuice.com.
Cam Robinson is the Director of Content and Film Scouting for Elite Prospects. And when we spoke to you last week, my friend, you had some optimism about the Vancouver Canucks and Tom Willander getting together. What's the latest there, bud?
Well, they didn't sign. He did not sign. So I believe my quote was, "I wouldn't be shocked if he was
That's
signed."
correct.
I remain unshocked that he did not get signed as well. A little disappointed. I think that from what I'm hearing is that the Canucks are just singularly focused on sorting out the head coaching position, right? And fair enough. But at the same time, it's like they could still have this kid in Abbotsford, right? As they enter round 3 of the playoffs. This should have been long done. He didn't make the Worlds. Now he's sitting over there in Sweden. Off-season training. He's going to have to shift gears. He's going to have to shift into that off-season training mode. He can't just sit in limbo forever and you stop playing games. It's like at some point, and that point has probably arrived already, or if not, it's very, very close, that if they did get a deal done to now airlift him into, the meat of a playoff run would be very, very difficult for a young kid like him. So not as optimistic this week as I was last week.
They can walk and chew gum, though, Cam. I'm pretty sure it's not 10 hours a day of coaching search. They can carve out 90 minutes, can't they, to chat with Tom Willander's representative?
You would think. I think at this point, it's like both sides are pretty dug in on where they are, and it's like somebody has to move, right? Whether that's the player or whether that's the organization, somebody has to move in. So that phone call shouldn't take too long. It should just be like, we're ready to do it, come do it. Or, we're ready to do it, come do it, right? It shouldn't. So I guess the discussions are kind of moot at this point. It's that who's going to blink first.
How worth is it to get his career underway for Tom Willander's side? Because the Canucks keep saying, well, he's saying no to a lot of money. Well, he's going to get the money eventually. But to start his career this year versus next, there is an advantage to that. How much do you think that Willander's side values that?
I think it's shrinking by the day. That it was at its peak, the day after the national championship game there, where he could have immediately stepped in and maybe saw some NHL minutes, or just gone right in and would have had himself a dozen games in the AHL already. At this point now, it's shrinking, ever shrinking. So for him to stay in Sweden now and go play for Rögle or wherever he wants is going to be just fine if they can't get an agreement done over the summer, and then he can prepare for what life could be like in the future if he wants to test free agency a year after that too.
Boy, oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Cam, the National Hockey League announced the offer sheet thresholds here today. And if you're willing to buck up and sign a restricted free agent to a offer sheet between $7.02 million and $9.36 million, that will cost you a first, second, a third round pick in the 2026 draft, and you have to own those indigenous picks, your own picks in that draft to make it happen. So now that you know the level of compensation, what do you think about an offer sheet for the Canucks, and specifically on Marco Rossi there in Minnesota, where there's been so much buzz?
Yeah, I mean, to offer sheet him, you're probably looking in that range, so the first, second, and third. It's not cheap. Right? Does it behoove you to go and spend that draft capital and that money on a player like him for $8 million or something like that, or like a JJ Peterka, or do you go in free agency and you try to sign a Nick Ehlers? It doesn't solve your center ice problem, obviously, but replaces the goals that you're going to lose when Brock Besser walks out the door. Or do you try to sign Brock again? Right? Do you circle back to the kid that you brought through? So offer sheets, I think, should be weaponized far more. but I like them in that lower range. I like them in that first and a third, in that second round price tag where you can squeeze a team that's like Edmonton, obviously, right? They went way too bananas in free agency, spent too much money, and then they pigeonholed themselves and they couldn't afford their players that they could use right now.
But this year, you're not going to do that to a team because of everybody getting the relief this year. This year, I think if you're going to use the offer sheet this year, it's to wildly overpay, isn't it? Yeah. To secure the talent.
Yeah, and that's fine. And a kid like JJ Peterka, who I am a huge fan of, if you want to go out and give him $9 million and force Buffalo to make a decision, be like, this is like a cornerstone piece for us, or you steal that very young, talented player, then yes. And like I said, I think it should be weaponized in all sorts of different ways. And you're right, this year with that relief that everybody's getting, that little cushion, it's going to be hard to squeeze anybody. So personally, I'd probably stay away from it if I was Vancouver, and I'd look more at, if you want a Marco Rossi, go and trade for him, right? So now you're looking at your first round pick and probably a Tom Willander or a Lekkerimäki. And then if it is Willander, maybe you're trying to get a guy like David Spacek back, right? So a 22-year-old, a right shot defenseman, he's over there at the World Championships right now. His dad just came out and said, like, a big reason he's over here is to get out of Minnesota. He doesn't have a future in Minnesota, that it's blocked in front of him. So this kid will play games, and now you have a little bit of a replacement for that right side that you're emptying with Tom Willander out the door. The value isn't too bad in a situation like that. You get yourself a second-line center, you get yourself a D prospect, you trade your first-round pick, you trade your top D prospect.
Is Spacek a Mancini-level prospect? Is that fair to say? Different game, but same level?
Sure, I could say that. I think Mancini's been developing pretty quickly, and he has that size, which is so impressive. Spacek, just about, a 6-footer. But yeah, similar type of realistic upside of odds of playing. I do think both will play games. Consistently play games. Maybe it's 400, maybe it's 600, whatever. But I think they'll have careers. We'll just have to see how high. I think Mancini might have a higher ceiling, pure ceiling.
Yeah, David Spacek, the son of Yaroslav Spacek, former National Hockey Leaguer. David was actually born in Columbus when his dad was playing there, a fifth-round pick from the Sherbrooke Phoenix of the Q in 2022. He's played the last 2 years with the Iowa AHL Farm Club of the Wild. 31 points in 72 games this past year, a 6-foot, 190-pound, 22-year-old red shot defenseman. And just tidying up, Cam says he's more interested in that offer sheet in the first and third round compensation. That's a $4.68 million offer sheet up to a 7.02.
The Philip Broberg.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But as you guys mentioned, harder to execute this year with everybody gaining cap space. Cam, we've talked a lot about Manny Malhotra as Canucks coaching candidate. Marco Sturm's name has come to the fore since we last talked to you. What do you make of Marco Sturm as a potential Canucks coach?
I've been asking around. He's a good coach, and he's well respected. People I talk to, they think he's not long for holding down an AHL job. That he should be in the NHL soon. It's interesting to see what's going to happen in LA. Obviously, he's the Ontario Reign coach right now. Do they make a change on their bench too with the new GM coming in? He has connections with Boston. Part of that Joe Thornton trade 100 years ago. He's been a head coach in the AHL for 3 or 4 years, assistant coach in the AHL for 3 or 4 years. So he has that international experience as well. Nearly won a gold for the Germans there. The Olympics, got the silver medal too. So he's had success at the AHL level. It's very similar to Manny. Is 7 years as an assistant coach in the NHL, just the one head coaching gig in the AHL, but found success. I keep coming back to this, though, is that Mitch Love is the one that people come back to again, is that he should be at the top of a bunch of teams' lists for a non-retread, for a first-time head coach in the NHL, that Mitch Love really does get heaped praise on. So I know right now we're talking about Marco Sturm, and I do think he's a viable candidate, excuse me, in Vancouver, as is Manny, but I do think we should keep an eye on Mitch Love. Obviously, he's in the playoffs right now, so no one's talking to him yet. But down 3-1, that might change soon.
All in the same category of coach, though, right? I mean, there's so much for the perennial Jack Adams candidates. Canucks are going to try to unearth somebody here, it appears.
It does appear to be that way, and we've talked about it. It's going to save them money. It's going to save them term, and it does often. With some of these younger guys, it breeds new life, right? You get new ideas. You have people. When I talk about Manny, like everybody, his preparation is second to none. His ability to communicate with the players. Guy. I am, right? Yeah, you want to prove that you can handle this, and that because oftentimes you get that one shot, and if it doesn't go too well, you're cast off. You're back to the assistant coaching job or back in the AHL.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see. What do you think the timeline is for them to pull this off? If they're doing live interviews in the next 10 days, are we looking by the end of the month for sure the Canucks have got a head coach?
Gosh, you'd think that they would love to have this done by the Combine, right? Which is running the 3rd to the 7th or the 4th to the 7th. You'd think that they would want to get this done sooner rather than later because you got other ducks that you need to get in a row. This is a big couple of months coming up here for your team. If you're going to make a big splash at the draft, free agency, everybody goes to the cottage after that. So let's get that head coaching job sealed up.
You mentioned re-signing Brock Besser, Cam, and since we last spoke to you, the AFP projection is in for Besser's contract, a 6-year deal at just about $8.5 million per season. How does that strike you?
It sounds about right. Wouldn't surprise me if he got more than that on a 6-year deal in free agency too. I know that people are going to look at him and they've watched him closely in Vancouver, and he's not a play driver, but he is a guy who has 40 goals on his resume. You know, he consistently puts up 25, knows how to play with good players. Well-liked, very well-liked. I do think that he's going to get some nice offers, but, you know, for Vancouver, it's like, I've come back to it again, is where are you going to replace those goals? How are you going to replace the person in the room as well, too? It's a tall ask. You're going to go out and you're going to compete against 5 or 6 teams or 8 teams for Nick Ehlers. You know, is that really going to be worth it for you? Are you going to spend more of your draft capital or your younger assets to trade and go get those players? Are you going to spend all your money on Sam Bennett, who doesn't score at the same level, but brings some other intangibles? Like, nothing's a great fit for you. It would have been great if you just got Brock done earlier. Maybe they could have found common ground sooner in the season. It wouldn't cost as much. Once he starts hearing offers, you know, everything's going to probably ratchet up. So if it's 8.5 by 6, I don't think Canucks fans should be too upset about that if that was the deal he signed in Vancouver, because I think you're going to pay more for potentially less if you go the free agent route too.
Again, it's not the first couple of years I'm worried about with that contract. Yeah. He can score that. It's anything past year 3, really, right?
6 years is you mitigate a little bit of that though. You mitigate. It's not an 8-year deal. It's not an 8-year deal. So, but I do hear you, but that's what you're getting in free agency too, right? Like, I know if you go and give Nick Ehlers a 7 or 8-year deal, 7-year deal, I should say, as a free agent, you know, he's got the speed, but is that going to age all that gracefully either, right? It's everybody's looking at it too. When you're that age, you don't really want to pay these guys at 33, 34, 35, but that's the name of the game in free agency.
What about Suter at 4 by $4.5 million, Cam?
It's not cheap. It's not cheap. I'm always scared of paying guys after career years, and he had a great year for Vancouver. You know, he's played a bunch of different roles for them. He can fit on the wing, he can fit in the middle, but I don't know. That seems like one of those deals that you end up being like, darn it, we overbid on this one.
Do you feel like they have to focus on somebody that is got the track record of performing? Great that he had a fabulous season too in Suter, but do you need somebody with a longer track record if you're going to invest multi-millions here?
Yeah, that's what I would prefer, or at least if you're gonna give him multi-millions, the term, right? Is that you know, give him 4.5 for next year. He earned it, sure, great, and let's see what happens. But obviously, he's not going to sign that contract. So yes, I would like to see someone with a bigger track record.
But I think there's also a world though where 4.5 over 4 years ages just fine. Like if Pius Suter is a 50-point player for all the 4 of those years, you're doing just fine with that.
Absolutely. That's the question though. Is he a 20, 25 goal scorer, 50-point guy, right? Is that he hasn't proved that he is that other than this year. And that's where the question is. You're right. It's a gamble. It might turn out right. And there's also a world where 4.5 doesn't get it done. That he could go to free agency and get 5, right?
100%.
This is where it's silly season, right? It is the silly season.
Lastly, Cam, you said the Combine was when?
So I'm going to be there from the 3rd to the 7th. I think technically it opens up on June 1st, but yeah, everybody gets into town on the 1st, and then they start doing all their things. Yeah.
He's going to miss Snoop Dogg at BC Place. Blake.
Oh, too bad.
I've seen him before. Seen him live. I think it was Pemberton outdoors. It was a good time. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
He doesn't remember that, by the way.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
Snoop Dogg.
Great stuff, buddy. Thank you for this. Catch up next week.
Okay, appreciate it, boys.
So Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, and this next segment brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians. They are back at the Nat this week, a 6-game homestand against the Everett Aquasox, the Seattle Mariners farm team. As we've been telling you tonight, is Asahi Night at the ballpark, and then a big week ahead. You have RBC Week here Wednesday, of course, the Nooner at the Nat on Friday, Women in Sports Day on Saturday, and that includes a special guest appearance from Hazel May of the Toronto Blue Jays broadcast on Sportsnet, and then Sunday, White Spot Family Fun Sunday, plus a bobblehead giveaway. So get yourself to the Nat, if not for the promotions, for the talent on the field.
Oh, there's some intriguing stories this year.
Our next guest here, he is the shortstop for the Vancouver Canadians, the Toronto Blue Jays' #1 prospect and first-round pick in the draft 2 years ago. It's our pleasure to welcome to Secure Some Price for the first time, Arjun Nimmala. Arjun, thanks for the time.
Yep, thank you guys for having me.
You're more than welcome. So, first impressions of Vancouver, how's the city treating you?
I think it's amazing. I mean, I've had a little bit of time in our home series to kind of explore the city and downtown. I got to go to Stanley Park and the suspension bridge, Capilano suspension bridge with my parents. But it's been pretty electric. I think the city is amazing. It's nothing like back at home at all. You know, it's a lot bigger. The people here are very nice. It's diverse, as I think I already knew. But I love the city and love the people. Love the scenery. I mean, I don't have mountains like this or the cherry blossoms back at home at this time of year. So everything here is just beautiful.
And Arjun grew up in the Tampa-St. Pete area, right near the Dunedin complex that the Blue Jays hold spring training in. Sorry, Blake.
No, I was just going to say, you've seen Nat Bailey Stadium. I'm sure it's made an impression on you. So what do you think of that? But we also are a little bit giddy to have you experience it in the middle of summer when that place is packed to the gills, because you know that's coming in the not-too-distant future. But what are your early impressions nonetheless?
I mean, it's amazing. Like I said, just like Vancouver, I've seen Nat Bailey Stadium all over social media before I was here, but I mean, the first time that I saw it, I was like, wow, this kind of blows what I see on social media out of the water. I mean, the field is amazing. The background, like everything to the field, I love. I mean, the fans, they usually pack it up. I mean, especially in the summer, as you said, it's probably going to get more packed, but even now, like for me, it's something that I'm not very used to. So just having to play in front of those fans and do what I can to help the team win, I think it's amazing.
You might want to slow down your pace, though. You might not make it to summer.
How about pick up the pace? Arjun, it is not exactly known as a ballpark that gives up a lot of home runs, especially in the cold weather. You're tied for the league lead with one of your teammates, actually, Adrian Pinto, who's the Northwest League Player of the Week, with 7 home runs. That's tied for the Northwest League lead. How have you felt about hitting at Nat Bailey in the cold thus far? Because that's got to be a whole new experience for you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that it's a lot harder at Nat Bailey to lift the ball out of the yard. I think the way to do that at Nat Bailey is to pull the ball into the neutral zone or over it. I think that's where the righties have the advantage. But I agree with you. I think something with the air or whatnot, but the ball doesn't travel as well as it does at Nat Bailey as it does at some other fields in the league. So hopefully when the weather starts to warm up, it changes a little bit.
Yeah, the marine air, the high fences, there's a lot of things going against you, particularly in April and May. It does lend itself, though, to extra base hits. We see a lot of triples in Nat Bailey, so
for sure.
Looking forward to that. Hey, 7 home runs, as mentioned. You're hitting 276, an OPS, 280, an OPS near 900. How do you feel about your performance thus far in your first month?
I think it's been pretty solid. I mean, for me, the goal going into this year wasn't, I mean, of course it's to put up, have good numbers, but, it's just help the team win and do what I can to get better every single day. And I think I've been doing a pretty good job of that. Of course, can keep getting better, and that will be the goal. But I think the numbers are a little piece of that. And it's kind of showing the hard work and the dedication that's been put in the off season and spring training. So I think it's been pretty good, but I think the C's need to win a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do what I can. Yeah.
You mentioned your parents have already made the trip up here.
Yep, they have. They came for a couple of days. I mean, only 3 days, made it out to 2 games, but they loved it here. They stayed in a downtown hotel, so they got a nice experience out of it.
They didn't stay with the Billets. That's too bad. And the reason why mom and dad stopped by is you're 19 years of age. I've got kids your age as well, and we still doing a lot of parenting. But here you are out on your own journey and living the baseball life. Have you Have you pinched yourself that you're on that ladder already, that you're on the journey here, trying to become a Major League Baseball player, and you're I would say you're well ahead of schedule as a teenager playing pro ball?
Yeah, I think, it's always in the back of the head. I mean, I do know that I'm a little bit younger for the league, but it's never something that's bothered me. I think it's just competition, and I'm always up for competition, whether it's, being young or not being as good. It doesn't matter. I think I'm going to go out there and give it my best. So age hasn't been a problem for me. It's just something that motivates me.
The pitching is always going to be the question mark at every level. How good is the pitching here? How is the pitching here? Is it where you thought it would be? Do you think it's more hittable than you thought it would be? What are your impressions of the league and the level you're at?
Yeah, I've always thought pitching, there's minute differences in pitching. I don't think that there's amazing, huge jumps is my belief. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but that's what I believe. Like coming from low A Dunedin to here in Vancouver, I would say like the pitching is pitching. Like it's a guy throwing a ball at you, and your job is to hit it hard. That's the way I think about it. I mean, I will say a little difference is, these guys tend to live in the strike zone a little bit more. So, they have more pitches to hit. They also can execute their pitches a little bit better. But I think those are the obvious differences that there's going to be as you go up the chain. But overall, that's the mindset I have. Pitching is pitching. My job is to hit it.
Arjun, number one Jays prospect, first round pick, top 50 overall prospect in baseball, and with the added anomaly that you're from right in the Jays' backyard there in the Dunedin, Tampa, St. Pete area. How do you deal with all the pressure?
You know what? Like you said, being from that area in Dunedin, I think the pressure's a lot easier to deal with because my parents are right there. My family's right there. And whenever I need to, I can drive an hour and I'm back home. So having them and the support system that I have around me definitely helps with the pressure. But then on my sake, I would like to say that, I like to think of pressure as good because there's something I need to look forward to and something that motivates me to keep getting better every day.
Tell us about your journey. How did you become a ball player?
Yeah, funny story. I started playing baseball because, as you know, my dad played cricket when he was back home in India. And he kind of saw it on through the side of his eye and said, you know what, let me try to put my kid in this sport because it looks kind of similar to cricket. So that's kind of how I started. I was 6, and it's been like that ever since.
Always a shortstop, always a hitter, or what was your passion when you first started?
Yeah, when I first started, I probably wasn't super good, like as you would expect. I was decent, but I actually didn't start playing short. I started at third and kind of the outfield. But over time, my coach was like, oh, he's got good hands and he's got good feet. Let's put him at short. And this was like 12 years old. And since I was 12, I've been playing short and hitting. I think I've always had a knack for hitting. So that's kind of just been there.
Arjun, we've talked to a lot of trailblazing athletes in our past, and some say, "Hey, no big deal. There will be many." Others take it very deeply, believe it very meaningful. But you're the first young man of Indian descent to be drafted in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft. What does that signify? What does that mean for you?
I think it means a lot. There's not a lot of Indian baseball players or athletes in general. So being one of the few ones, it's definitely inspiring for me, and it's one of my goals to keep inspiring young Indian kids to play sports as well.
Well, we've got a huge Indian community here. I'm sure you've already seen a little bit of that, but I hope it gets discovered throughout the summer because you could become the favorite, not only because of your stats, but because of the background as well. And that's an exciting part. Are you ready for that attention from your native community, if you will?
Of course. I think that'll be amazing. I think getting them out to the games is going to be crucial for future fan support. And I think that, it's something that I've heard. I've heard Vancouver, Toronto, this area in Canada usually has a lot of Indians, has a huge Indian population. And that's something I didn't know going into the draft. Only after being drafted by the Blue Jays did I know, oh, that's something that I could look forward to. So it's definitely something I want to see. I want to see a lot more fans out there of my culture, but, I'm open to everything.
Well, they're huge sports fans too. That's what we've noticed here in running our
Oh, yeah.
shows. The Indo-Canadian culture is to take on the sport.
You wonder where some of the local teams would be without the support of that community. Last question, Arjun. I know you guys were in Spokane this week. Did you cast an eye to Seattle and see the J Series there and what went down there?
I did watch a little bit. I mean, it's kind of in season where I'm not going to watch too much baseball. It's something I do because I'm not very focused on other baseball games when I'm kind of playing or when we're playing. So I did watch a little bit, but I saw the Mother's Day win. I mean, I saw Varsho in a nice catch, Springer to homer. I saw we won, so that was a good thing. Go Blue Jays.
Our favorite part about covering the Canadians, Arjun, is having these conversations with you guys and then seeing you climb the ladder. And we're going to drive down the I-5 a few years from now and be like, remember our conversation with Arjun Nimmala when he was a Vancouver Canadian? So
I got to say, I sure hope to see you one day in a Blue Jays uniform in Seattle. It is an electric environment, 25,000 Canadian baseball fans, Blue Jays fans down there. It's basically a home game. And, a couple of years down the road, would love to see you there.
We'll see you down there for sure.
Thank you, guys. Hopefully I can do something for you.
Sekeres Price from the historic Wall Center, where if you have your tickets to the big game, why not make it a full experience? Stay downtown here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rate. Some blackout dates supply based on availability. This next segment brought to you by the Arnold Palmer-designed Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2025 season. We'll get to the golf report tomorrow in advance of the second major of the year, the PGA Championship from Quail Hollow. A reminder, tee times can be booked at any time now for the entirety of the 2025 season. Lock them in. If you have a group of 12 or more, ask about the Sekeres Price midweek specials. We've been telling you now for years, the prime times for the big groups at the Whistler Golf Club, they fill up fast. But if you got a group that you want to bring up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, get in touch with the Whistler Golf Club. Drop our names, and our buddy Al Chris Manson, the director of golf up there, is going to take good care.
And drop our names with your boss, too. If you need a note, you are allowed to skip work middle of the week and go golfing at Whistler.
So if that's the case, go to whistlergolf.com/groups, and, of course, follow on social at Whistler Golf. Well, the NFL schedule drops tomorrow evening. Already drips and drabs coming out from some of their broadcast partners. The Philadelphia Eagles will raise a banner and open the season on Thursday Night Football, September 4th, against their rival Dallas Cowboys. How about this? This was interesting. The LA Chargers had a decision to make in terms of which opponent they wanted to take internationally this year, Blake.
They got to choose?
Yes. So one of their home games, designated home games, is in, Sao Paulo, Brazil. So they got to choose which opponent did you want to take there, and they chose Kansas City. I think they feared Chiefs Kingdom taking over SoFi Stadium. We know that it has not exactly been the best home field advantage for the Chargers. So they're going to take Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City all the way to Sao Paulo for that opening night Friday game. The European game schedule is out. Minnesota is playing back-to-back in Europe in two countries. They'll play the Pittsburgh Steelers in Ireland.
In Europe.
Yeah, they'll just stay. They're going to start in Ireland against Pittsburgh and then make their way to Tottenham Stadium to play Cleveland. Oh, wait. Am I allowed to call it just Tottenham Stadium? Do I have to call it Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or just Spurs Stadium? They've been quite insistent on the way people say their name.
I think you're fine with Tottenham.
14th on the table, and we're going to insist on what our name is.
A lot of East Coast travel for the Seahawks this year.
Yes.
But no international games.
Well, they are at Jacksonville, so people wondered, because, of course, the Jaguars always play in London, whether the Seahawks would be taken to Europe and London. But no, that game is going to be in Jacksonville.
But they've got Atlanta, Carolina, Jacksonville, Tennessee, D.C., and Pittsburgh away. Like, that's crazy, man.
For yes.
Like, they've got their divisional road games and then all East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, not as much closer to home.
That's
well, of course,
awesome.
you know, if you're not playing the AFC West, that takes a lot of the more Western destinations out of the orbit, right? Like you take a look at the rest of the AFC, it's mostly teams that are in the Eastern time zone, if not Central. Black Friday game, the Bears at Philadelphia. Of course, there'll be a Thanksgiving triple header, including games in Dallas and Detroit. We'll find out who the opponents are there. But Black Friday, Chicago at Philadelphia. December 20th, Philadelphia at Washington, Chicago at Green Bay, and then they're going to ask the Denver Broncos to go play in Kansas City on Christmas Day. In fact, Kansas City has expressed an interest in hosting Christmas Day games going forward, much like the Lions and Cowboys host Thanksgiving Day games and have for decades. Seahawks have signed their first-round pick, Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota State University. Interesting, the agents are getting over a little bit here this year. Fully guaranteed contracts for some of these rookies, including second-round rookies. So Zabel's going to make $18.471 million on that deal. And how about this? The Seahawks are now cracking down on reselling tickets. They're a little fed up by all the road teams that have been able to take over Lumen Field. They have sent a note to season ticket holders and telling them that if they sell a majority of their seats, they will have their accounts reviewed and may not be eligible to renew. Now, you are going to be able to plead your case to the court here. They're not just going to automatically say, oh, this guy sold 6 of the 9 games or the 8 games, he's done. They are going to reach out and basically ask you why. If you had a good reason, you might be able to renew, but you're on notice here. If you're a Seahawks season ticket subscriber who usually
so the Seahawks
buys
have
the
more due
season
process than the government. Interesting to note.
Yeah. And this was a big domino at the NFL draft that people were wondering, would there be news about him? Cincinnati defensive end Trey Hendrickson, who led the league in sacks last year, was 17.5. In fact, 2 straight years was 17.5 sacks for him, has now told the Bengals, extend me or trade me. This is a situation that's been brewing for several months. The Bengals extended themselves by re-signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, their fine wide receivers. Hendrickson, the pass rusher, has made his case clear that he's not showing up without an extension. There's kind of been a war of words there with the Bengals team president, who has not been shy to engage on a number of topics, including she floated relocation, Blake, if there wasn't a new stadium coming. So she's been quite bold in what she has said publicly. And we'll see. That's a significant chip on the market. If you're looking for a pass rusher, he's one of the best in the NFL, and one suspects that he would return a significant amount for a team that's willing to acquire him and extend him. NBA draft lottery stunner.
And this is just this
or
was
is it?
This is was it 1 day removed from the frozen envelope anniversary? I saw there was
1985, the New York Knicks in the lottery needing a star player, and the conspiracy is that David Stern reached into the drum. They had envelopes back then and picked out the frozen one, that the Knicks envelope was frozen, giving them the right to draft Georgetown center Patrick Ewing, who, needless to say, turned into a star player.
It was the 40-year anniversary of the frozen envelope to the day, and we have a new one.
The Dallas Mavericks have the first overall pick. They had just a 1.8% chance of achieving that top pick. This is a tweet from a gentleman named Anthony Puccio, who covers the Brooklyn Nets. Let's get this straight. The Mavericks trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers in a, quote, secret trade. They have a 1.8% chance to land number one. They lands number one. So the conspiracy theories are out that the NBA head office encouraged Dallas and their GM Nico Harrison to move Luka Doncic to the Lakers for the sake of ratings. It was sagging ratings in the NBA. Get Doncic to one of their flagship franchises with LeBron. See if the Lakers can make a run. And oh, by the by, we'll make things right in the NBA draft lottery. And the right to select Duke forward Cooper Flagg, who is the unanimous number one here. A very good prospect, like maybe an Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis level prospect, somewhere in there. Flagg is. The rest of the lottery was filled with stunners, too. San Antonio jumped up to the second overall pick. Philadelphia jumped up to the third overall pick. The odds of the top three landing in that order, Dallas, San Antonio, Philly, was 0.0114%, Blake.
It's an absurd conspiracy theory to throw out, and it sounds absolutely true.
The problem here is, and look, I can understand the NBA wanting to crack down on tanking. It has been a scourge of the league. There are some truly dreadful teams on a year-to-year basis that are absolutely unwatchable. That's part and parcel, if you ask me, why the ratings have sagged. I mean, you at any time in the NBA season this past year had like 7 to 8 teams that were playing, less 333 basketball or worse. I mean, they were absolutely awful when you have more than a quarter of your league that is winning like 30% of the time. Well, ratings are going to be down. Utah had the best chance of the top pick. They fell to number 5. And in this draft and in a lot of NBA drafts, the difference between number 1 to number 5 is measured in Grand Canyons. I mean, whoever the Jazz select at number 5 this year, okay, maybe he turns into a starter. Maybe he turns into even a very good starter. But, Flagg has all-star written all over him. In a lot of drafts, you're taking rotational pieces that far down.
Yeah.
The Jazz are kind of like the Vancouver Canucks. They have never picked first overall. They have never moved up in an NBA draft lottery, which kind of furthers the conspiracy, right? Like Utah, not exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Push them to the back of the line.
The Raptors fell from what the indigenous pick would have been 7th if it had gone to Hoyle. They fell to 9th. I think going to 4 teams is a little much. I think the NBA has gone overkill here. I think if you are the worst team in the league, you should be picking no worse than 3rd, if not 4th. 5th is a little far, if you ask me. Because Washington was dreadful, too. They're picking 6th now. So, like, Washington went from the possibility of Cooper Flagg to go with the 2 French kids they've taken in the first round of the last couple of years, who are good players, having a centerpiece there. They're now going to go get someone who they hope fits the rotation, but they're still lacking star power. So, the Jazz and Wizards were set back years by yesterday's lottery result. Meanwhile, San Antonio, a chance to add the 2nd overall pick. Everyone believes that's going to be Rutgers guard Dylan Harper, who would seem to be an awesome fit with De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. I mean, San Antonio could well be on their way. They got the 14th overall pick, too. San Antonio could well be on their way to home growing an NBA championship, much like they did in the Duncan, Ginobili, Parker era. It's very hard to do these days. Most NBA
But 2 top 15 picks this year
exactly.
alongside Wembanyama, that sounds pretty
and
good.
the Rookie of the Year and Stephon Castle. So they've got a lot of things going for them. Meanwhile, on the court, poor Jason Tatum carried off the floor at the Garden with what looks like an Achilles injury. He's likely gone for the season. The Knicks open up a 3-1 series lead on the defending champion Celtics. 3 of the 4 series are 3-1 here in the NBA second round. Indiana can eliminate Cleveland tonight in their Game 5. And then the other big news is that Giannis exploring trade options. The Milwaukee Bucks may be forced to trade their superstar player, and everybody is mentioning the San Antonio Spurs, who have a lot of draft capital.
Twin Towers again.
Redux of the Twin Towers, and the Houston Rockets, who have a very deep young roster, and they have the 10th overall pick this year because Phoenix traded it to them. So
and rumors of Kevin Durant going to Houston.
Yeah,
too.
so could be a fun offseason in the NBA. And then, as you know, the NBA is returning to NBC next year, who are reprising their theme song, Round Ball Rock, Blake. I know how much you love Round Ball Rock. Basketball, we're gonna... Michael Jordan's going to be a special contributor to the NBA on NBC. He saw Gretzky, and he's like, you know what? I can do that, too.
I can be as shitty as Gretzky
and
is.
like, the thing is, I'm sure he's got takes. You know, he doesn't know anybody in the league anymore. He's not going to spare these young guys.
Every week it's going to be like, not as good as me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anthony Edwards, he tried that fadeaway that I'm famous for.
I used to hit that.
And I took that personally. Plus, more on the new Pope. As we were talking about last week, this is, to the best of our knowledge, the first North American sports-loving Pope ever. We know he likes his White Sox. There's incredibly even video of him at the 2005 World Series. A cutaway shot to the stands. There's the future
What are
Pope.
the chances?
What are the chances?
Who poured over that?
Also, really good seats. I hope the diocese wasn't bucking
Putting the
up
bill
for
there.
those seats. The associate director of athletics at Villanova is also a priest. He knows the former Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV, and he confirms, oh yeah, he's a Villanova basketball fan. He texts me about Villanova games, and he also adds, the Villanova official, he follows the New York Knicks because they have 3 Villanova alums on the team from their glory years when they won a couple of championships. That's Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart. So the Pope keeps up with baseball. The Pope keeps up with basketball and the Knicks. And when this was relayed to Knicks head coach Tom Thibodeau, he quipped, oh, well, they can be forgiven of their sins. How are you going to get on the 3 Villanova guys now, Coach, when they've got ultimate forgiveness? Canadian Championship Series in soccer. Mentioned this yesterday, but didn't flesh it out, and there's an oddity to it this year that we got to get into. The Caps face Winnipeg's Valor FC Tuesday, May 20th at their park, and then the return match is Wednesday, July 9th here at BC Place. 50 days between leg 1 and leg 2 to accommodate the Gold Cup and the international break.
Yeah. I honestly,
not ideal.
As we talked about yesterday, like, if they bow out early in this tournament, I don't think anybody's too brokenhearted about it. The Gold Cup is going on, by the way, but so is the Whitecaps season. The Whitecaps play through the Gold Cup, which is too bad because they're going to lose some players, obviously, like Ahmed, potentially more. So that game will fall in between a July 4th game versus the Galaxy, which a B team should be able to beat the Galaxy too, although we'll see how healthy they are, and a Colorado road game. Both of these are road games. They got to be in L.A. on July 4th. They got to be in Colorado on July 12th. But they got to be home on July 9th. That's not ideal.
I just 50 days between legs is.
Yeah, as I said, I don't know they're going to be
ideal.
They're not going to be fielding the best lineup those nights, and if they win, great. If they don't, well, they've had a hell of a year.
Vancouver FC faces Calgary's Cavalry FC Wednesday, May 21st. That's at Willoughby Park here in Langley. So they open here, and again, the next leg is July 8th at Spruce Meadows in Calgary. Caps have won this tournament 3 times in a row, and an early start to errors and omissions here because when the NLL Warriors season wrapped up in the semifinals, best they've ever done, we heaped a lot of praise to Kurt Milosky, their head coach GM, and also to Dax Aquilini, who runs the team on the from the Canucks Sports and Entertainment side. We should have given more shine to Jason Thorne. He's their VP of Business Operations, and yesterday was awarded as the NLL's Executive of the Year. So congratulations to Jason. As mentioned, it was a marvelous season for the Vancouver Warriors. They put that league, they put lacrosse back on the map here in Vancouver. So job exceedingly well done. Toyota Pacific Dealers poll question results. Can Manny Malhotra win his way into the Canucks head coaching job? Yes, no, or he's already done it. People said?
Yes.
They said yes, correct. Percentage?
50.
70.
Whoa!
18% or just shy of says no. 13% or just shy of says he's already done it. They're, of course, in the third round. Colton, he needs another couple of years. He needs to show he can follow this up. Hey, fair take. JT, if management and ownership decided it was time for a rebuild, I would say that Malhotra should get the job, but the goal is still to win and contend for playoff spots, so I think they should go for someone with head coaching experience at the NHL level. Also a fair shout, JT. And Oman, Canucks going to make Manny his head coach. Capitals coach, the same age. Both were assistants on the Leafs from 2020 to 2023. Capitals coach got the 8th and 1st seeds in the playoffs his first 2 years. Both seem like hockey guys, very well versed with offensive minds, but positionally sound. Manny's AHL run is the clincher. Yes, Victoria Spencer Carberry.
Who'd have thought
Cowichan
that
Valley
Sheldon Keefe is going to be like Bill Belichick? They were going to be talking years about the Sheldon
Coaching
Keefe tree coming from a pretty infamous stint as head coach, really.
A long list of errors and omissions today. Thank you for contributing. I'll start with my own. Mention this goes back to last week. I said Tocchet had a brother in Seattle. Sorry, it was Tocchet having a son in Seattle. I said a 12-game Blue Jay homestand. I don't know why I said that was a 9-game Blue Jay homestand. J-Pat was searching for the Colorado Eagles' home record this year in the AHL, the Abbey Canucks' next opponent, 26-6-2 at home. So tough barn to play in. And then, Blake, one on you. A listener pointed out to me, you said as we were discussing the seats for sale at Rogers Arena and the history they've seen, you said it's not like there was a Stanley Cup raised in there. Well, sadly there was. It just was not a Vancouver Canucks Stanley Cup raised in there, but the chalice was lofted in that.
And
building.
then
sadly, there's one player who keeps reminding.
Yeah, that's right. He keeps raising an imaginary one. B in North Van, also E&O on Matt from minute 45. Thank you for the exacting. Yeah. Quote, Florida and Washington is not compelling hockey, end quote. Points valid, teams were not.
Thank you, B. Yes, Carolina and Washington not compelling hockey, and they proved it again last week.
They did indeed.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays, and, of course, support the community sponsors we keep telling you about. And keep it local.